On your station, Hit Mix 88.9 WEIU. And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. I'm just sitting here talking off mic, no big deal. My name is Jeff Owens, director of WEIU Radio. My guest today is Mr. Ed Thomas. He's the owner of Bike and Hike here in Charleston, as well as still Effingham, right?
Yep, correct.
So I'm going to scoot you up there. Yep, bring it. You can just pull that right to your head.
There we go.
And we want to talk to a few small business owners today about kind of just the state of business in Charleston. I had a couple people that had obviously had to run their business today and couldn't make it, so I appreciate Ed coming in. So we're going to talk a little bit about business, biking, and anything else that comes up today on Issues and Attitudes, because we can. And we're 1 week away from Eastern and Lakeland. You also work at Lakeland College, so we're 1 week away from the inundation of college students.
Big day.
Well, welcome, Ed.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just talk a little bit about how you think things are as a business owner here in Charleston. Yep.
I think considering what's been going on in the state, it's actually quite good. I think Charleston's weathered very well. We've had a couple of good years, and a lot of that's been our advocacy with the trails. The local trails have really helped, but I think it's good. We've got some new storefronts, and things are looking good.
Now, as a business owner, when you saw the enrollment going down at Eastern, did you do any kind of business change, or did you just kind of roll with the tide?
We had already seen a change from, the old term cocooning, where people would cocoon. We saw that with students sort of before that even happened. And, I think back in the 90s, people thought a lot of our business was students. And then really it's shifted, and we have a lot of baby boomers as our customers, and it was that way before the enrollment really dropped. So we didn't see an enormous drop-off in our traffic because of that.
And as you talk to other friends and people that are kind of your cohorts in business in Charleston, and even Effingham a little bit, maybe Mattoon, since you work over there, how do they feel about the business climate right now in Coles County?
Everybody's pretty optimistic. I know some of the restaurant sales are down a little bit. When you take half the student population out, that's going to affect tickets there. But mostly optimistic. A few people have said they're a little slower, but
yeah. When you work at Lakeland College, and you do a lot of you work in the radio and TV center over there at Lakeland, right. So you work there, but you also have to, when you own those two businesses, how do you kind of deal with, I don't know if it's the time aspect, but are you ever at Lakeland or ever at Bike and Hike wondering if I should be at the other, or how do you kind of manage your time and expectations?
I got little boxes in my head, and they're little Tupperware lids. I try to really keep them separated, and it's easier with Lakeland to keep that separated, but with the bike shop, I don't bring my phone into class. That's one of the things. And it's a complaint that I hear from students is they have high school teachers with phones, that sort of thing. But so I try to keep my phone separated and focus on that work when I'm there. And then for the bike shop, I have a home office where I do the books and things like that. That helps me keep that contained.
So you've kind of figured out that plan.
I figured that out.
Now, when you talk to other business owners, are they a little bit, jealous or envious that you can do this other thing and still run a successful business in two different towns?
I don't think they're jealous. I think they're concerned for my mental health.
That is a great answer. When you think about Ed Thomas's managerial style, not the teacher at Lakeland or the instructor at Lakeland, but when how you manage your stores, what's the Ed Thomas way of doing business?
Oh, I think I used to be more granular, more into every detail, every little nuance of the store, and then as when we added the second store, I had to let go a little bit and let my guys do the things that they, I should say gals too. We do have a female mechanic, but I let them do what they do. They're pretty autonomous at this point, and I take care of the back end of the stores, and they take care of the front end of the stores.
Now, what about if you're going to give advice to a new business owner or a potential new business owner in Mattoon or Charleston or Effingham area in Central Illinois, what advice would you give for someone that was going to start a business here?
How long do we have?
We got 24 more minutes, buddy.
I think today, if I were going to start something today, it would have to have a hands-on service component. The Amazon train is quite enormous, and to compete with online shopping, our generation's not so much. I mean, I do some online shopping for certain products, but the kids coming up, they're plugged in that way. So if you don't have something that brings them in that you put your hands on, whether it's making them a cup of coffee or straightening a bicycle wheel, I think that would be a challenge to sell knickknacks that aren't handmade or something that you service in your on your property.
So are you saying that biking, the service is really is where your money is made, or your bills are paid, or however you want to look at it?
It's an important margin center for us, the service component of our business. But we do have a draw with the products that we sell, and some product lines have kept it kind of secure for their dealers so that you can't sell it online, so you're not competing with the lowest bidder, so to speak. But the service is very important to what we do.
How'd you get into what you do, bikes and hiking and bike accessories and service? I mean, what led you into that line of business?
When I was a kid, I wanted to either be a writer or a rider.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be the title of my memoirs.
There you go, writer or rider.
And when I was a kid and I learned how to ride a bike, I discovered that freedom that came with riding a bike, and you could explore your town. And, in the 80s, when I was kind of out on my bike, at that time, kids just rode around. That's how you got around town. And I finished. I worked in retail for several years and came back to graduate school and wrote a short business plan, got a small business loan, and decided I was actually. Let me back up just a notch. While I was in grad school, I felt guilty because my wife was working. She's a physical therapist at Sarah Bush. Shout out to Sarah Bush.
There you go.
And I thought I need to make a little money to help out, so I was going to repair bikes on the side. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to repair these bikes, I'm going to need a channel for parts. And one thing led to another. I wrote a business plan, and that was 22 years ago.
There you go. Well, that seemed to have worked so far.
It's working.
Knock on wood, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go back to what you talked about Eastern. If you look at the percentage of the people who walk in your door, so is it less now of EIU and Lakeland students than it was a few years ago, or has it kind of stayed the same and you survived some of the low economy problems?
I think it's a little bit less, but the Eastern students, who I completely respect, adore, and love it when they're here, they have never been the core. Early on, people thought that was our core business, but really, we do attract a lot of 25 to 50, 60-year-olds that ride bikes. They do it for fitness or recreation. We get a lot of ex-runners.
Yeah,
their knees are a little torn up.
Yep.
So, the Eastern enrollment turn down was not a huge hit for us. Of course, we felt the impact, and we did have some customers that were employed there that no longer are our customers. They've moved away. Yeah. So there has been some impact, yeah.
Biking really has taken off, it seems like, I don't know, maybe I've noticed it more now, but it seems like the last 5, 6, 7 years, biking as an exercise, but just something to do on the weekends for people to get together, these clubs and everything. Obviously it's helped the biking like business, but it's really been a boom for, just as another outlet for people to do on the weekends and stuff. Talk about biking, and it's just increased.
Well, it's what we've seen. We had the Lance era, which really brought road cycling up in the United States. We had mountain biking when we first opened, and then road cycling really changed when Lance was winning the tours. And I know there's the bad side of that too, but that really brought a lot of people into road cycling.
Lance Armstrong. If you didn't remember, just
I'm sorry.
Just to make sure.
Yeah. And so that really changed the face of our business. And we have a road group that leaves from the Charleston store on Thursday nights about 5:30. We got several different tiers in that road group. So there's the really fast people, and then the new riders, and then a hammock group in the middle.
Yeah.
And then our mountain bike group, they ride on Wednesday nights out at the trails. They leave from Woodyard Park. I think it's about 6:15. That's a little more flexible. And then there's a lot of casual riders that aren't really part of a group that ride. And I think what's going on in Charleston right now, and I can speak to Effingham as well, but there's Brendan Lynch, our advocacy director, he's also our store manager, has done a great job working with the city, securing different grant monies to develop the trails around the lake.
Yeah, and that's what people have been talking about. I mean, around here, everywhere, is just the bike trails at Lake Charleston.
Yeah, and the trails are great. And my neighbor and I rode. It's been a month or so ago, and I bet we counted 200 people on the trails.
And the Mattoon to Charleston bike path has been popular as well.
Yeah, and our hope is to have that paved. So that'll be a solid asphalt surface to Mattoon. And, the dream is that you could get on your bike, ride to the train station in Mattoon. I know there's no overpass. We're working on that. But ride to the train station.
It's only $25 million, so.
It's some dirt.
Yeah.
And then take the train to Chicago, get lunch, go to the art museum, whatever, and then come back and ride your bike back to Charleston. So that's.
You got to have dreams.
That's the dream.
That's the big
I think
aspiration.
it's going to happen. I'll let you know.
There you go. How often do you bike still, Ed?
I don't ride quite like I did 10 years ago is probably when I did the most riding, and I've tapered off from that. I was doing, several hundred miles a week, and that's hard to do with little kids and 2 shops and teaching. So now, I'll ride a couple of times a week, try to stay in shape.
What about the longest you've ever ridden in one day? How many miles what's the top end mile for Ed Thomas?
The longest I've ridden in one day, a group of guys and myself went to do the RAIN ride, which stands for Ride Across Indiana, and it's in a day. So you leave from, it's down near Marshall, and then you end up just inside the Indiana-Ohio border in one day. So that's 158 miles.
Whew. It's pretty good, right?
It's a long ride.
How'd you feel?
Long ride. In order of the most suffering to the least, it was youngest to oldest. The oldest riders in our group fared the best, and the youngest riders did the worst. And I was second to youngest.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I would have thought that you would think that what you just talked about earlier would be the opposite, but I guess
they're savvier and they've ridden more.
They know when to rest.
They know better.
To take proper precautions and everything.
Yep.
Charleston Chamber also did a bike race recently, which I thought was another thing that, you 10 years ago, a bicycle race in Charleston, no one would have thought about it, but now it seemed to have really been a successful event.
It was an enormous success, and the Chamber really did a great job with that. One of the things that they changed with that ride is the Exchange Club used to run a ride called the Tour de Exchange, and then, I don't remember exactly the mechanism or what happened there, but that they handed it over to the Chamber, and the Chamber added a timing component and 3 routes. So there's a 50, a 25, and a 12. And we had, I think, a little over 200 riders turn out, which is an enormous turnout. If anybody listening got to see that, they know that it was a really big turnout. I rode it. I just did the 25 because my fitness isn't quite
Only
there.
25.
Hey, I got first in my age.
There you go. We won't say you're
pretty excited.
There you go. What about somebody who is trying to get into biking? How should they start? I mean, not just go to Bike and Ike or go to another bike shop or whatever in the area, but what would your advice be to them? Because you just can't jump on and start going 20 miles a day.
What I always used to tell new riders when they would they come in and get a bike, I would say, listen, if you go out and start your first ride and it's really quiet and you feel really strong, that probably means you have the wind to your back. So you want to pay attention to where you're going to ride. Hydration's important. Having the fit of the bike right is very important. And some people discount that and then they wonder why they're sore. Well, imagine wearing somebody else's shoes that don't fit.
Yeah.
You'd be in pain. So, the right equipment, the right route, knowing where to ride. There's some rides, if you stop by either of the shops, they'll tell you where not to ride. There's some roads that, even though you have the right of way, we just would tell you don't ride there. We give you some better routes. So get to know some people in the cycling community that can help.
That's a good answer. As you look towards this fall and winter season, do you set expectations for your shops that, hey, you want to reach these numbers or these goals, or do you just kind of go into it and not hope for the best, but hope for the best? But do you set goals and expectations for the shops as we head into? Believe it or not, Christmas is only a few months away now that we're into this mid to late August time.
Christmas has always presented a real conundrum for the bike shop because we know people are buying Christmas gifts, and I think bikes, of course, make great Christmas gifts, but it's not on a lot of people's radar because it's usually cold and snowy here. We do have monthly goals that we try to set. It's just really hit and miss for us in the winter. The winter we had, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago, the monster snowstorm. You'd have days when nobody would come in, and then you'd have other days when somebody would come in and buy a really high-end racing bike in the middle of winter.
So in the last winter, there was really no snow.
It was great because we could trail ride all year.
Yeah, which is really odd. So this whole global warming or lack of, or whatever fight you want to be in, it's been 80 degrees all of August. So either September's going to be really cold or 110. I keep telling people. So
I got to read the Farmer's Almanac.
There you go. You touched a little bit on Lance Armstrong. I don't want to go into him and all his issues, but the Tour de France kind of came and went. And to me, it used to be one of those things. It was a sporting event that the non-biking community person would pay attention to. It seems with all the Lance and Floyd Landis and all that stuff going away, the Tour de France is not as popular. Your take on that?
That's definitely changed, and I try to watch it each year, and I wasn't really rooting for anybody this year. I'm drawing a blank on his last name, Tyler. There is an American that was not really a grand champion contender, a GC contender, but there's definitely when you have a horse in the race, it's more fun to watch.
Yeah.
And there's not an American contender right now.
You think that's the reason?
I think that's part of it, and I think people are a little tired of the doping scandals. So
you think? Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of it. And if you don't understand the sport, it's like when I watch not to slight soccer, because I know it's a tough sport, but when I watch it, I don't fully understand it, so I don't appreciate it.
Can I give my soccer opinion and not get any? I don't want to give away the soccer opinion out of me. Soccer is the only sport. Well, I don't know if it's the only sport. It's one of the only sports where you can beat your person downfield, and you get a penalty against yourself because of the offsides rule.
See, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes no sense. I've tried, and my kids played soccer, so I think I can honestly say this. I don't understand the offsides rule in soccer. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
That would be like saying a wide receiver beats a defensive back downfield. Oh, you beat him. We're going to come back.
Right.
It's the same theory.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I know it would increase scoring, and there's probably is some logical reason, but it drives me nuts. So
yeah.
I just had to expound for a minute.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
No, I enjoyed hearing that.
There you go. I want to talk a little bit about, you as a business owner in Charleston, but more on the fun side of it. Has there ever been somebody that is coming into your store, maybe you were there, maybe it was Brendan or your Effingham manager, and just had the weirdest, oddest request for either a service or an item?
Every day.
Really?
Every day, except in January. We've seen a little bit of an uptick in these gas-powered. Somebody will take an old bicycle, then you can buy these gas-powered kits, and they'll bolt it on, and we struggled with that for a little bit. Like, how do we handle that? And we decided that we just can't have the gasoline in the store, and
because that's a motorcycle to me, is it not to you?
Well, the DMV doesn't. The Secretary of State doesn't recognize it as a motorized cycle. I think you could get ticketed for it. I know it's not legal, but they don't. There's not much enforcement. We don't like to mess with it because it's such a hodgepodge of pieces, and
you see a lot more of them though around town.
Oh yeah, and it's not our core market. What else do we get? We still get a lot of requests. Not a lot. We get a handful of calls each year about hiking equipment, and we really don't sell much hiking equipment. It's really more the bike.
It's more bike hiking instead of people hiking.
Exactly. When we opened, we had some hiking gear, and it just didn't. We couldn't get a return on it, so we transitioned.
What do you sell the most of?
Oh boy.
Told you I was going to ask you tough questions.
That is a tough question.
And someone who does the back end, you think you'd know it right off the top of your head.
Well, there's dollars, there's volume, there's margin. I think the hottest ticket really has been the FX. It's the letter F, the letter X. It's the kind of casual rider. It's the rider you were asking about earlier, somebody that maybe is a returning cyclist or they haven't ridden since they were a kid. It's what we call a fitness bike. So it's the do-it-all, ride it around town, ride it to Mattoon, ride it on the Trek Trail in Effingham. That's our best, strongest category.
Is there something you thought would sell but didn't that you brought in? You're excited about this widget or something?
Yeah. Trek Bicycles introduced an automatic shifting bike, and it was called the Lime. And they introduced it in Madison at their Trek dealer show. That's probably been 7-8 years ago. No, that's been 10 years ago, whatever. And it was really neat, but it was just a little bit pricey for that type of buyer. It was made for the person that wanted super low tech, but the bike would shift on its own, because single speed bikes aren't that much fun to ride. And it just didn't work.
Was that here or nationwide?
Nationally, it didn't work. And I was in a store in Madison last year for the show, just kind of checking out a different store up there, and they still had some on the floor.
Oh, really?
Years old.
I was going to ask you that too. When you are going on vacation or you're out of town for one of your kids' events, do you go into other bike stores to nose around or not?
I do a little bit. I mean, I don't make an effort to necessarily, but if there's one close by, we were in Michigan last weekend, and we stopped in a little store there because my extended family rented bikes. And we rode to lunch and had a good time, and it was fun to see that other shop.
An item that surprised you that it sold so well or still sells so well? We're talking to Ed Thomas from Bike and Ike of Mattoon, or of Charleston and Effingham today. Just trying to get a little bit of small business knowledge for some of you people out there.
Item that surprised me. Years ago, when Bowflex was big, do you remember Bowflex?
Yeah.
We bought those, we sold those like crazy, and then it evaporated. They just stopped selling. And I never thought we would sell those like that. We still do treadmill sales. We do Landis treadmills, but we don't. The Bowflex is sold like crazy, and then it was done. When their TV campaign ended, if they would have been on public television and public radio, they would have still been selling.
Great segue there. I appreciate that, Ed. That was very nice. And let's go back a little bit. We're talking about being a business owner. Now you've been. I assume that we can say you're a successful business owner. I keep saying Mattoon because you work in Mattoon, but in Charleston and Effingham. Have you thought about expanding to a third store, or is that just you're satisfied now?
For where I'm at in life and how old my kids are, I'm pretty content.
Okay.
And I think with a third store, I think it would be a little bit much on my
Too much on the plate.
On my mainframe, yeah.
That's good. What do you think the best thing about biking is?
It's low impact. You can talk while you do it unless you're really going fast with a crew that's really fast. It's quiet. I used to dirt bike and four-wheeler, and I did a lot of that growing up. And at one point, I just sold my dirt bikes this year, motorcycle dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And I just really found that I enjoy the quiet and just riding in the woods or riding on the road, which are two completely different activities. That's what I like, is just the solitude that comes with it.
You ever have a bad day in the business world? Who do you call? Do you have compatriots that own business or own similar shops across the nation or anywhere, or one of your dealers, or how does that work?
I've got some people in the industry that I'm pretty tight with that I'll talk to, and then because I've got the two shops, and we kind of share with each other, because I'm not the boots on the ground, I'm not on the floor. I'll fill in shifts if somebody has vacation or if they're injured or sick or something, and so really I've got a pretty good support group with my people.
How's the Effingham community? They have a lot of biking clubs as well and trails down there. You were going to talk about it, and I kind of veered you off.
No,
Sorry
that's
about
okay.
that.
Yeah, it's a little different. They have a road cycling group. They do not have the off-road trails that we have up here, which is 3 minutes from my doorstep to go mountain biking is a real blessing. But they've got a road group that meets, and they do some group rides down there. And they do have a real strong casual riding with the Trek Trail. Although there's some hills on that trail, if you go down there, just you want to know how to shift gears.
When you're teaching class at Lakeland, do you bring in that you're a business owner, or do you kind of stay focused on the students and the education that you do?
I try not to. I steer away from it. Every now and then a student will recognize me, or they'll know me from the shop, and they'll ask a question. And if it's relevant to the lecture or what we're talking about, I'll include a story or an anecdote, whatever. But I don't generally bring it up. It is interesting, though, when they figure it out, they want to know more. And every now and then I have a student that'll ask me, hey, I got this business idea, here's what I'm thinking about doing, and I'll kind of take them through what I've done. So,
are you different as a teacher or instructor at Lakeland than you are a manager at Bike and Ike? Is your style the same, or are you two different eds, as I would say?
Well, I've got a lot more control in the classroom.
You do? I need to take some notes then.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think my personality is very much the same, but they're two totally different worlds. In one scenario, you're really trying to gain their business, and you're trying to, it's product driven and service driven, and then the other situation, it's they're coming to you as a student, they're enrolled in the class, and I teach public speaking as one of my classes, and everybody gets to, according to the state, they have to take that, so it's a little different.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I'll ask you some rapid fire questions as we wrap up. Is there a favorite type of bike that you like? Now, you don't have to go to one you sell. Is there just a favorite type of bicycle that Ed Thomas just loves to ride?
Fuel EX 9.8.
Is that what you have, or is that what you like?
It's my newest bike, and it's the coolest bike I've ever owned, and I've owned a lot of bikes.
How many bikes do you have right now at the Ed Thomas house, not Bike and Night, at the Ed Thomas house?
In my house, I probably have 12.
12?
Yeah.
How many people live in your house right now?
4.
4. You got extras.
That's close. That's a guess.
That's all. I think we probably have 12 in my shed, actually. I don't know. Do you have a mentor in the business world that you look up to that kind of steered you into business? Teacher, professor, way back when?
Probably my parents. They've been in retail. They have a women's dress shop in Effingham they've had for 85 years. And I think that experience coming from soft lines to hard lines was a good transition for me. A lot of hard lines, bicycle shops, that type of business, have struggled in the last decade. A lot of bike shops have closed. And I think my background in, a little more savvy business model forced me to make better buying decisions in the bike shop.
Is that the Thomas shop?
The Thomas shop.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Is there a sport you love besides biking? Is there a sport you like to follow, watch, be involved in?
Right now it's tennis.
Tennis.
My daughter's playing tennis.
Here in Charleston?
Here in Charleston, and I've been pretty immersed in the summer practicing, and I'm really bad.
I don't know anything about tennis other than Venus and Serena Williams. That's what I could tell you about tennis right now. What about music? Are you a music lover?
I am a music lover.
What song or what artist are you going to have in your whatever MP3, CD, whatever?
I have an old school iPod.
I still use CDs. I think CDs are the best. I'm never going away from it.
I have about nearly 500 CDs.
Yep. So is there a go-to CD when you're having a bad day or you want to have a good day? Or is it a mix?
Lou Reed, New Sensations, Metallica, and Justice for All. Man,
That's good. Those are good answers.
Is that good?
Yeah. What does
Okay.
Charleston need as a business right now? What type of business would you like to see come to this town?
Waffle House.
A Waffle House. We ask everybody that question a lot of times just to get the response. That's the first Waffle House. Now, you want to guess what the number one is? Panera.
Denny's.
Panera.
Oh, Panera.
It's always Panera. If you talk to an Eastern student, it's always Panera. Or anybody that hasn't grown up around here, it's always Panera.
My speculation is that we'd be too small for a Panera.
Now, I think one's coming around here. Is one coming to Effingham, maybe?
Effingham is getting a Panera, I
there you go.
believe.
So there'll be a lot of traffic going
Lot
that
of
way.
interstate,
There you go. What do you think the best thing about Charleston is? When you think about Charleston as a community?
Well, I'm a little skewed because one would be Eastern, right? Having Eastern here in the town. I'm not saying that because I'm on WEIU, public radio, but I would say for our business, it's the topography. It's the hills south of town. This is the cycling mecca. People think of urban centers as these great places, but one thing urban centers typically don't have is the type of riding that we have. In just minutes from my doorstep, and I live here in town, I'm on beautiful country roads with very little traffic. And we've got trails, and so obviously, I'm in the bike industry, but if I didn't have the bike shop, I would still say that.
How does biking continue to grow over the next half decade or so?
There's a push in the industry for electric assist bikes, which we are completely up in the air on. There's a tiny demand for it. I see that maybe being for people as they age, or if they ride with somebody that's a little bit faster than them, or if they want to ride with their grandkids.
It would pedal on its own a little bit?
No, it won't go on its own. It's the way to make that legal for the street is it can only assist you. So you pedal, and then it'll match your power.
It's kind of like a steroid for a bike, for lack of a better way to
It's
say
the
it.
Lance Armstrong edition.
There you go. That's kind of neat. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, we do have. I've ridden some. They're interesting. I don't know what their place is. I think we're going to see more and more of the FX that mom and dad and their kids, that type of riding, I think is going to be the biggest growth.
There you go. Did you any summer vacationing this summer? Did you get to go anywhere at?
We went to Los Angeles.
That's cool.
I've never been to California other than just landing in San Francisco and doing something there. And that was a really neat experience. Although we took a bicycle tour, imagine that.
That's shocking. Shocking development here.
Of Hollywood Boulevard. And it might have been the most terrifying cycling experience I've ever had.
It's dirty, right?
It's dirty, and there's very few bike lanes, and
I've heard like 3 or 4 people have went to L.A. recently. They say you will not believe how dirty downtown like L.A. Hollywood is.
It's kind of the haves and the have-nots.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So that was interesting.
And the question that's really been over everybody's plate this summer is a hot dog a sandwich or not? That's been like one of those Twitter feud people have. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? I would say that it is not.
I kind of tend to agree with you.
It's its own thing.
There you go. That's Ed Thomas, ladies and gentlemen, Bike and Ike, small business owner, Lakeland College instructor, good friend of WEIU. Appreciate you coming in today, Ed.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Told you it would be easy.
It was great.
You answered all the questions. I think you're awesome. So everybody have a great day. The Civics 88.9 WEIU and your 13 TV Issues and Attitudes will return next Monday right here, 12 noon.
You're listening to Coles County's music station. This is Hit Mix 88.9 WEIU.
Issues and Attitudes is supported by Coles County Sanitation and Recycling. They offer residential and commercial service as well as roll-off containers to dispose of construction, roofing, and home clean-out waste. More information on Coles County Sanitation and Recycling is available at 345-7101 or at charlestongarbage-service.com.
Corey Appraisal and Consulting supports Issues and Attitudes, a professional real estate appraisal and consulting firm located in Charleston. Corey Appraisal provides residential, commercial, and agricultural appraisal services throughout much of central Illinois. More information about Corey Appraisal and Consulting is available at 348-6011.
Hold on, little girl, show me what he's done to you. Stand up, little girl, a broken heart can't be that bad when it's through. It's through. Fate would twist of both of you. So come on, baby.